Everybody, welcome back to the Calibrate Tools DIY channel. Hope everybody's doing okay. It's another Tuesday. Time is moving on, like I always say. Hope everybody's doing fine. And I'm going to make it quick, guys. It's not going to be a long one. But just wanted to stress the importance of hands-on learning and why that is so critical to a child, right? Not, much less adults. But it's when a child is in their formative years and they're learning something, especially in school, hands-on learning is so important. That's why I always harp on shop class, why they take it out of schools and all that, because a lot of times we think of shop class as an elective that we had to take in school. No big deal. Yeah, some people, they took it even further and they became tradespeople or whatever, right? But besides all of that, when you understand how the brain works when it comes to learning and when it comes to actually manipulating your physical environment and how that actually can speed up learning, it's very interesting how that works, right? So when they took shop class out of schools, they actually made people dumber, in my opinion, right? Because they focused so much on trying to raise test scores. It was all about test scores, and they ignored subjects like home ec, auto mechanics, wood shop, and all that, because they felt, it wasn't relevant to their agenda for raising test scores. But what they did is they undermined children's ability to learn and adapt to their environment. When they took home ec out of schools, they took all these, hands-on type of classes out of school. That actually, I think, it was a step backwards in terms of a child's development process in the educational system. Okay. And so let's dive into that, why that is. Okay. And this, like I said, guys, this is going to be a short one. Take it however you want to take it. When a child uses their hands, okay, guys, to build something, they activate what they call a network system in the brain where everything is involved. The motor skills, okay? They call it the motor cortex, the sensory cortex, okay? We got 5 senses, all of that, touch, taste, smell, and all of that. Spatial reasoning centers, emotional memory systems, all these stuff, all these parts of the brain are working at the same time, working together to achieve a certain outcome, whether that's building something or just learning something, right? And so what they call it is a cross activation of all these systems in the brain, okay? And it helps you remember more, right? So you can be able to accomplish the task at hand, whatever you're doing. And that's why I say shop class and anything hands-on is so important, because it's engaging the whole brain, right? You're not just reading about something, right? And imagining things. Yes, the imagination is very important. But when it comes to practical skills, when they got to go out there in the world, they have to know how to think and have critical thinking skills. And that's why shop class, guys, shop class, wood shop, whatever, auto mechanics class, whatever type hands-on class, it helps to build that part of the brain, okay? So you can learn how to think critically and not just fix things, but actually create things, okay? Or invent things, right? Like I said, I invented this picture hanging tool right here, guys. By the way, if you want to support, go check out the Exactech picture hanging tool. The link's going to be below, and you can support the channel that way. But I had to engage my critical thinking skills when it came to this, and this is just the final outcome. There were so many iterations, so many prototypes that I went through just to get to that, right? But it all involved everything I just listed: motor skills, spatial reasoning, all of that. And the once those things are firing on all cylinders at the same time, it takes you to a higher level of thought, a higher level of intelligence, where you become a creator, right? And that's you become an innovator, and that's the ultimate high. Once you come up with an idea, not to say that idea wasn't around before, but you came up with it. You may not have been the first one, right? But the fact that you came up with it, I mean, that's just a testament to, you know, all these parts of the brain working together for you to come to that conclusion. And that's what inventing is all about. You come up with an idea, a novel idea, what they call novelty in the patent and trademark world, well, the patent world. And that's, you know, that's something that's new, wasn't expected. You pull that out of the ether. Why? Because you engaged all of those skills in your brain. You were using your hands. You were, you know, you were going through all the trial and error, making the mistakes, you know, thinking, okay, how can I make that work and all that stuff. That's the importance of having your kids learn how to use tools, having them in these classes where they're using their hands, not just in a book all day or just getting their brains fried by looking at, you know, because they're glued to a phone all day. Okay. And that's why I promote what I promote on this channel. All right. So like I said, when a child uses their hands to build something, right? This is what's happening to them. You're doing so much more good for them in terms of their brain development when you have them involved in things like this. Okay. I guess another analogy would be the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. You know, they're out in the woods. They're learning how to start fires. They're learning how to do this, learn how to do that. Same thing, same concept, right? So they go to school to learn all these things like math and you know, chemistry and physics and all that stuff, but they're just learning concepts and just equations. They're, you know, which is fine. You can get off intellectually with that, right? But to actually put them to use is where the real magic happens. Okay, and it starts, like I said, on a basic level with shop class. Okay, so there's a guy by the name of the name kind of slips, but anyway, I think he was in the neurology department of some school or something like that, and he wrote a book studying the relationship between manual skill and intelligence, and his conclusion was the development of hand skill and the development of complex thought are not parallel tracks. They are the same track. You guys get what I'm saying? So if you take, like, say, a math concept like fractions, right? That's fractions. If you know, if you're not like adept at math, or you weren't gifted with a math type of brain, you know, fractions coming up as a kid, fractions probably confused the hell out of you, right? You was like, dang. And just like a lot of kids, right? But when you actually apply the concept of fractions to an actual real world project or real world whatever, say for instance that you're baking a cake, right? It says a kid learning how to bake a cake, for example, they will have to know not just how much to put, you know, what ingredients to put in there, but they're while they're baking the cake, they're learning fractions, is what I'm pretty much saying. Okay, they're learning these mathematical concepts that may confuse them if they're just sitting in a classroom looking at the teacher write stuff on a chalkboard. You know, so if you actually give them a real world example of how fractions work, it's going to automatically click in. Their mind's focused on, oh yeah, I'm going to bake this cake, and you know, I got to put a quarter inch of, a quarter, 1/4, what I don't bake cakes, so I don't know, of salt or whatever, right? Whatever ingredient, they're learning that mathematical concept of fractions right there, and they don't even know it because now it's fun to them. So when you mix fun with these concepts, they no longer become, tedious, strenuous brain problems for them. They no longer become a math problem to them. It becomes something fun, and they learn it. And next thing you know, they know what a fraction is. Okay, that's the point I'm getting across. All right. So let's see here. Says educational psychologists call this a transfer of learning. That's the ability to take something you've learned in one context and apply it to another. And hands-on experience is one of the most reliable accelerants of transfer we know of. The physical experience becomes an anchor. When the abstract concept appears later, the brain has somewhere to hang it, right? So basically saying, you know, the actual physical experience, the actual practical, experience of doing something makes these concepts make sense. Okay. Once again, I'm going to draw it back to the shop class thing, right? Even if you're not teaching math, like per se, you actually are teaching math. Is what I'm saying. So the best way to learn is to actually be involved in the thing. So when you go to school, right, we sit in the class and we learn these concepts. We may even score very well on the tests, but it doesn't mean that we actually know how they work, right? Intellectually we do, but practically we don't know how to apply these concepts. And I think that's where the disconnect happens. And it happened when they took the trades out of schools, took them out of junior high and all those things. And so that's why I propose in the title that, hands-on skills, hands-on learning actually makes you smarter, makes you more well-rounded when you go out into the world. But now we're kicking kids out into the world without these practical skills. And so they don't even know how to apply some of the concepts that they've learned, whether it's math, whether it's, science, not to say that they have to learn all the concepts, but at least some of the basic ones. Okay. And putting them in a hands-on environment, learning environment like shop class is going to already prepare them, right? You're already laying the foundation for them to be able to transfer all of this book knowledge into actual, knowledge, right? Real knowledge where you can actually apply it. Okay. All right. So it says, let's see here. A 2014 study published in Psychological Science found that students who physically acted out mathematical concepts, that means literally moving objects to solve problems, showed significantly better retention and transfer than students who learned the same material through traditional instruction, book learning. Okay. The hands weren't just helping, the hands were teaching. Okay. Yes. All right. So let's look at some examples here. So in mathematics, let's see here. A kid in shop class has to calculate the area of a piece of plywood they're cutting. They have to convert between fractions and decimals. They have to understand Pythagorean theorem when they're checking whether a corner is square. These aren't word problems. These are real problems. The stakes are real. If your measurements are off, the shelf doesn't fit. That's just an example here. The consequence creates focus, and focus deepens learning. Teachers in project-based math programs consistently report that students who resist algebra on paper engage readily when the same algebra controls whether their bridge folds or their kite flies. Yeah, the shift, when you actually put them in an environment where they have to apply, for example, an algebra equation to make that kite fly or whatever, right? That's the difference right there. Okay, that's what makes kids want to come to school, want to learn, because they're actually learning something, not just learning how to solve an equation on paper. They're actually learning how to build that bridge or whatever it is in the physical world. Okay, and that's project-based programs like this, I think, are the key. Right? Physics, okay, says you can lecture a class on torque. You can write the formula on the board, or you can hand the kid a wrench and let them feel why a longer handle makes a bolt easier to turn. Yeah, give them the tool. Give them the tool, let them feel it, let them do it. And this, when I was at the school the other day on career day, and I got a chance to introduce a lot of the kids, these were middle schoolers, to tools. And surprisingly, some of these young kids already knew what these tools were. Not all of them, but some of them. And female and male, by the way, right? Because they either had a relative that's, but still it was very impressive to see that some of these kids knew what these tools were, right? Because I didn't know what to expect, but that was a pleasant surprise. But to give them the actual tool, the ones that didn't know or were more curious, and show them how it worked and actually let them strip the wire and stuff like that. If you go back and watch the video, you'll see what I'm talking about. All their cylinders in their brain were firing, right? And everything I mentioned, the motor cortex, the spatial reasoning, this and that, they had to figure it out. Even stripping a wire was difficult for some because they didn't know, okay, you got to straighten the wire out. Don't just, if you bend it, you can't pull it off. So yeah, of course, with a little coaching and everything, they were able to do it. And once they accomplished that, I'm pretty sure that it was a light bulb moment for them to just say, strip a wire, right? Or, see how a miter saw works or a drill press, things like that. It's so important to introduce your kids and put them in an environment, not just have them learn about it, in a book, right? Put them in an environment around these things, and then you can see where their aptitudes are. Some may be interested, some may not, but that's how you do it. It doesn't have to be the trades. It could be whatever field it is. Put them around the thing. Get what I'm saying? So you can either hand them the torque wrench or you can teach them the formula. If you hand them if you teach them the formula, they're not going to know why, the torque wrench is long, right? But if you give them the wrench and you make them torque an actual bolt down and see why, a long wrench gives you better leverage and makes it easier for you, then they'll understand. Okay, then you can go back to the equation and it'll probably make more sense to them. So a good teacher is going to bring props. They're going to bring, things to actually put in the hands of people, right? Doesn't have to be kids. It can be adults as well. Put it in their hands. Make them do it, right? Make them learn. Make them make mistakes, okay? That's how you do that, okay? The sensation of torque, that physical intuition, doesn't replace the formula, but it gives the formula something to mean. That's just what I said, right? Students who've worked with real tools often describe physics class later as feeling suddenly obvious. All right. So, okay, reading and writing. What about that part? That's important, right? They want the test scores to be, they want some high test scores in reading and writing. How is shop class? What does shop class have to do with that? Well, shop class actually demands reading and writing skills as well. Think about it. If you want to know how to put something together, you got to know how to read the directions, right? You got to know how to read the instructions. You have to know how to read the plans. You have to know how to read the blueprints. So shop class or any trade is going to teach you these things, right? If you want to put together a desk or a shelf or something like that, you got to know how to read, point blank period, right? While you're putting it together with your hands. So that increases retention even more because now you're using your hands while reading. And that's such a great learning experience as well. And I'm sure even some of you adults who have done, have put together a shelf or whatever, built something, some DIY project, and you were looking at the instructions on this and that, how to use something or how to build something, right? You see how all these skills work together. So you can't say shop class does not teach reading and writing skills. It sure does. Okay. You may have to write up a plan. Okay. You may be documenting the process. You may be communicating to someone about the process and how to, so you have to know, right? So reading and writing it goes hand in hand, pun intended, with hands-on skills. All right. So it says the most important function of all, though, is the executive function. It says hands-on work builds what psychologists call executive function, planning, sequencing, error detection, persistence in the face of failure. I think that last one is the most important. It says a student building a birdhouse has to plan before acting. They have to check their work against a standard. They have to identify what went wrong and try again. These are the same skills that predict academic success, career success, and life success. And they are skills that are notoriously hard to teach directly. You can't teach these things. These are things they're going to have to learn on their own, right? We all have to learn these skills if we want to be successful in anything in life. You definitely have to learn patience. You have to learn persistence and all of that. You have to learn how to double check your work, right? Whatever it is. And you have to learn how to focus most of all. And those things you can't necessarily, you can shout all day and tell someone to focus, 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 but you can't teach that. That's something they're just going to have to, the work is going to have to force them to do those things. Okay. And that's what it does. That's what hands-on skills do, right? That's what shop class does, right? They're going to automatically have to focus to make sure they do the job right, right? They're going to have to check. Sorry about that, guys. They're going to have to check their work. They're going to have to go back and check their work, right? So all these things are happening when they're working on something. That's the beauty of shop class. That's the beauty of DIY. That's the beauty of the trades, because it's not just a book, right? It's not just an essay. It's the merging of abstract concepts with the actual physical world, right? That's what that is. So anyway, guys, that's the importance of it. Like I said, I was at this school on career day, and it was, by the way, thanks. I want to say thanks to the Virgil Roberts Leadership Academy, Alliance Virgil Roberts Leadership Academy, for having me come there. And my man, Daryl, Daryl invited me. Appreciate you, Daryl, if you ever see this. Good experience. So guys, get your kids into something, or get yourself into some way using your hands. I think it can be therapy as well for anybody, any age, where you're building something or doing something with your hands. Okay, it doesn't have to be building something. It could be whatever. It could be planting something. It could be gardening. It could be whatever. I think that all this is using your hands. Is could be a very important part of your mental health. Take it how you want to take it. Let's see. Claudia Dottie, hey, how you doing, Claudia Dottie? All right, Travis' son, Wade P. This is exactly right, because when I was in Germany, by the time they get to high school, they're pretty much going on 6 months out of a year to work with a professional in that field. Yeah, that's amazing, right? And Germans are known for their precision and their attention to detail. They may be known as very unemotional people. Now, I'm not judging. I've never been to Germany, but this is what I've heard. And they've cranked out some nice cars, I think, right? And so, yeah, there's something to be said for that model. I would love to see that model spread more. I'm doing my part here on these platforms, and actually I'm looking to do more workshops out there in the world as well. But that's how you learn. You got to get in the trenches, right? It's not just about book knowledge. I don't want to get all negative and anything, but stuff hits the fan, right? With what's going on in the world today. Who's going to be able to build things or protect everybody? It's going to be the people that know how to use their hands and build stuff, to build whatever they need to build fortresses. You're going to need the welders, right? Definitely going to need them. Say you want to build a barrier, a metal barrier. You're going to need welders to do that, to make it strong enough to resist, from whoever's coming from the outside to get you, or at least protect you for a while, right? You're going to need people to know how to if let's just say the power goes out, You're going to need people to know how to set up the electrical systems again, or maybe build a solar installation to harness the energy from the sun to give, to provide power. You're going to need things like that. So yeah, guys, it's about, it's all about, I think, teaching our kids, giving them these basic skills to know how to protect themselves in any situation, right? And to be able to build stuff and innovate things to protect themselves and their families, right? So yeah, you just can't have a bunch of quote unquote book smart people running around that don't know how to build nothing or don't know how to fix anything. What good's that going to do, right? That's not going to do any good at all. Okay, you're going to need people that are not afraid of getting their hands dirty, right, and putting stuff together to make things happen. So anyway, guys, that's it for tonight. I said I wasn't going to be here too long, but hope you got something out of that. If you got kids, think about getting them into a program somewhere, find somewhere, or if you teach them things, you learn it yourself. Watch my channel, subscribe to my channel, and learn how to use tools, and then teach that to your kids. And then you can go out there and build stuff with your kids together, and that you can bond with your kids. That's a bonding moment right there, especially for a father and son, or a mother and daughter. I don't discriminate. Learning these skills are can actually save the relationships in your family, because everybody's glued to these things, right? Everybody's glued to these things, and that's not doing any good for the relationships. You're trying to get closer to your family. They're closer to this than they are to you, and that's a dang shame, in my opinion. Okay. So anyway, guys, that's it for tonight. I appreciate you. Go ahead and share this live. Go ahead and support the channel, guys. Go to calibrate.com. Check out what we got. Go grab the Exactech picture hanging tools, guys. You know what? This is flying. I only have so many left. Okay. And I want you guys to get a piece of it. You want to support the channel. It's a great gift item. Okay. Learn how to, hang your pictures, those special memories on your wall. No hassle, no stray holes, none of that stuff. That's why I got this for you. Okay. And anyway, guys, go ahead and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.